Welcome, everybody, to Circle Back to You. I'm your host, Jason Wilson. Today, we are back with Asif Ali, our esteemed arena football legend. How you doing, brother?
Doing great, brother. How about yourself?
Good, good. Man, excited about this season. Last season ended on a dismal note, but hey, it was a rebuilding season for the Falcons. How did you feel about the way that San Fran ended their season?
Yeah, man. Actually, let's circle back to the Falcons because we were on the show last year when the Falcons were able to go and beat Seattle, playoff team in Seattle, which we did, which I did call out. We saw Marcus Mariota, we saw Cordero Patterson, we saw a lot of promising things from Arthur Smith's team, and I want to say that it could potentially, like you said, be a rebuilding year, right? I mean, I was watching Undisputed this morning. I was watching First Things First. I was watching all the sports talk show First Take. And we'll probably, and if you want, I want to get into this a bit about Shannon Sharp leaving Undisputed and be on First Take with Stephen Smith. But basically, everyone in their NFC playoff picks, basically did not have the Falcons, right? But with that said, the Seahawks were on that list. I think the Falcons, I'm not sure they played the Giants last year, but obviously, the Saints, everyone's looking, they're prime on the Saints, this year with Derek Carr and the Falcons, they played them wire to wire last year too. So, I mean, I think the Falcons, depending on how Marcus, is he still on the team? Let me check, actually. Was he
No, he left the Falcons, man.
He left the Falcons, yeah. So he left the Falcons. Who's the quarterback? Is Desmond Ridder?
Yeah.
Desmond Ridder, yeah. So Desmond Ridder, we'll see what he can do this year. And I mean, there's a lot of promising things. I think Calvin Ridley, could potentially have a breakout season, a great young wide receiver. So, I mean, there's a lot of good things to look forward to. Now we're going to go back to the Niners. And so this is kind of what I want to talk about. Obviously, we cut off, I think, our show in the middle of the season, and I had basically a bunch of 49ers on the show. The three-time Super Bowl champion, Randy Cross, 49ers Hall of Famer, as well as Super Bowl champion from the most recent Super Bowl team for the Niners, Super Bowl 29, Dexter Carter. He was a return specialist for that team. The recurring theme, amongst all those, for former 49ers players, and of the two legends who I mentioned, basically were that, what we saw from Brock Purdy, was something that was, a lot of poise and a lot of promise, those two Ps. I mean, basically the Mr. Relevant, the last pick of the draft last year coming in, and basically just taking over a team, with basically two starters go down. And obviously the Niners as a whole, back to your question, how did I feel about how they ended last year? Well, you saw Brock Purdy get knocked out by Hassan Reddick in the NFC Championship game. And then you saw three other quarterbacks, namely, Josh Johnson and, Trey and Jamie, basically come in and, try, basically play. But actually, Trey and Jimmy didn't play in that game, obviously, because they were out and injured. But Josh Johnson, was basically who laid a fat egg. Man, I said he was horrible on my show and on Twitter. I want to say, all things considered, Niners, his defense ended last year on a historic note. I believe number one, number 2 points allowed, number 1 point and 2 yards allowed, number one or number two overall in defense, total overall defense. So obviously, that's something huge, and I mean, I'm not sure the defense will be this good this year because, you look forward to the free agent market. I think around 20 starters, no, not 20 starters, but 20 players, around 10 starters from last year, Jimmy Ward, I think Jake Brendel or Brandon Brunskill, I can't remember, from the line. A few line, and Mike McGlinchey also departed, so there's going to be, it's basically going to be a new year with new players. I am proud of how they ended last year, considering how well Philly played in the Super Bowl.
Man, if you go back to the first episode of last season on our show, man, you didn't have any hope whatsoever about the 49ers.
I did not. I actually had them going 10-7 last year because I thought Trey was going to be the starter. But I really counted out. I discounted and basically did not count, that defense and how great they were and how great, overall that line is and how great overall the run game was, how great overall George Kittle, Debo, and IU can be with almost any quarterback. Not saying that Brock isn't a talented quarterback, but I mean, I do think that, this is definitely a season for him. I mean, I'm not going to say make or break because they did prove a lot last year going 8-1. But I think that it's a great season for him to show, if he is really a franchise guy. Because I think that's been basically what's been lacking the 49ers for, franchise history the past 20 years. I think ultimately, you look at the 49ers history and the lack of quarterback consistency. Last quarterback to complete 2 full seasons was Colin Kaepernick back in 2013 to 2014. So you're talking about basically almost a decade of, inconsistent QB play marred by injuries, head coaching changes, and then, even if you want to go back even further than Colin, the last quarterback to make a Pro Bowl was Jeff Garcia in 2003. So you're talking about, 20 years of, not necessarily mediocre QB play, but just, quarterbacks who were not able to basically a lack of standout quarterbacks. And, obviously that's been something that's been a recurring trend from the national talk show media hosts, basically how well can Brock play and how well can this team, field, a fully healthy roster and with all the departures. So, I'm definitely interested to see how they're going to do, this year, especially, the NFC, I want to say is a little bit more open than it was last year. You do have the Eagles, you do have the Cowboys, you do have those teams, popping up. But I think that, all things considered, the Niners, granted, they still do have some key players from that team last year on defense and offense. So, I'm going to be interested to see how the line plays, and I'm going to be interested to see how Brock, progresses this year.
Man, I think he's going to do well again. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, I think the only reason why I'm not fully all in, I am in, with all things considered of him as a starter. We're kind of cursed when it comes to Pro Bowl quarterbacks. I hope Brock puts up Pro Bowl numbers, and I hope that he is recognized for those contributions. Obviously I want the team to succeed, and I want them to continue doing what they did, build up on that. And what's the next level of that is obviously making the Super Bowl, winning the NFC, making the Super Bowl. So very lofty expectations, right? And obviously, if you have to go against Philadelphia, who all the talk show hosts basically feel are still a Super Bowl team, but you look at some of the additions that the 49ers took, actually one of the additions from Philadelphia, Javon Hargrave, on that defensive line, that's definitely that's a key addition. You're talking about a player who had, I want to say, 2010 or 15 sacks last year, and over, I think, 40 to 50 sacks in the last 5 seasons. So, huge production coming out of him. So that's definitely, and you have the I want to say the reigning defensive player of the year, Nick Bosa, coming off the edge. You also have obviously Trent Williams at number 71 anchoring that, that left side. So yeah, I like you said, I think Brock Purdy has the weapons, right? Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. These guys are going to make it easier for Brock to succeed. Yeah, he has 1 year under Kyle Shanahan's playbook. Sam Darnold's a good security blanket. And actually, I want to get into this, but I want to get your thoughts. Because now that Trey's gone, I want to know kind of what do you expect from Dallas? Because Dallas' season ended with the 49ers' last win, the postseason game at home against Dallas, that heated rivalry. What was your take on kind of the trade for Trey to Dallas, and what do you expect from Trey? And what was Jerry thinking? Because I'm still trying to figure that out.
Man, I don't agree with that trade. I think it's going to backfire on Dallas, man. That's what I think.
And the reason why I'm asking that, because I'm with you, just because the inconsistency from Trey this preseason, obviously there's a lot of question marks, but seeing that inconsistency, like, kind of still in his 3rd year, even though he has only played 2 games the last 2 years. The amount of draft capital now is invested to go up and get him at number 3 overall. That's telling, because you put all your chips in one basket. You expect that, that hen to produce, or if he lays an egg, then you basically have to ship now. And then, they ship now for a 4th round pick. I think ultimately is obviously, cutting their losses. And the reason why I bring that up is because Russell Wilson is going to be in his 1st season now with Sean Payton as his head coach. That QB trade, because of how Seattle, what we previously mentioned, on the show, we talked about last year when Atlanta went to Seattle and beat a playoff team in Seattle with Geno Smith, the comeback player of the year. People were saying that based on how Russell produced last year and how Geno produced, that Seattle obviously got the better end of that trade. And essentially that Russell Wilson, that trade from Denver could have arguably been the worst QB trade in history.
Absolutely.
For any team.
Yeah.
And so you look at Trey, though, that's what they're saying. Now people are saying the flip side, not necessarily for Dallas, but for the 49ers for investing that much draft capital to go up and get him at number 3 overall and having it not pan out, right? But I still think that with all things considered, the Niners still have a very competitive team. And Trey was just one piece of that. Yes, they sacrificed draft capital in that draft and this draft. But now moving forward, I think that hopefully with the additions, again, I think losing Robbie Gould, having the kicker Jake Moody get injured, and getting Jake Moody with their first pick in the draft was kind of a head scratcher. But with that said, I mean, the team is loaded on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, maybe they was just kind of, filling that need. So, again, I mean, I've been wrong about Kyle and John Lynch in the past. I mean, I was actually right when I basically called them out when they drafted Javon Kinlaw a few years ago. I did not think Javon Kinlaw was a pick. I thought either CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy would have been a better overall fit. Brandon Ayuk has actually proven himself to be that fit. Who they drafted after Kinlaw in that first round in the 2020 draft 3 years ago. So I'm looking to see how well these new players produce, the safety, the corners, right? I don't have all their names, in front of me, but I'm looking to see how they're going to replenish, the gap that Jimmy Ward has left. Emmanuel Mosley, who was a key starter last year, and 2019 when we made the Super Bowl. I was actually at that game at Levi's in a championship game. So I'm looking to see, there's going to be a lot of young and new faces for the 49ers, a lot of veterans and new faces alike, new faces, and I'm looking to see how Brock progresses. And I'm looking to see, kind of how these new skill positions player play. But on the flip side, looking to, in our backyard, to where Dallas is, right? I'm looking to see what happens, because Dak's in his last year of his contract. What happens if Dak, in a situation like last year unfolds, if Dak has to miss 4 weeks? Obviously, he's not. I mean, Trey's not going to play with Cooper Rush, but I mean, let's say, they get the worst, the injury bug. Cooper basically gets injured. Dak, obviously he's out. Then what does that leave? That leaves, another number 3, Trey.
Right.
And I think, Jerry Jones is the type who's kept the Cowboys so relevant. The Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in the NFL at $9.2 billion, and they haven't won. They haven't made it out of the second round in the 25 years, 27 years, I think.
Right.
So it's really mind-boggling to think, how well Cowboys have done financially, but they haven't produced results. I think Jerry's priorities are pretty much about money. So I think Trey being just the mercurial name is kind of that motivation into why he made that trade. That's what I think.
Man, on another note, did you see Quarterback, the series on Netflix?
Oh, yes. I was about to ask you about that.
Oh, man. That was phenomenal. Yeah.
So let me ask you, what was your take on Marcus? I mean, because seeing how he progressed and seeing how he had to show the losses and the wins and how he had to kind of balance the two and the injury.
Yeah.
Remember the injury, right? And all the press. So how was that for you?
I mean, it was painful for me, especially the first 8 games of the season, and they ended up with 4-4. I honestly believe that they were going to make a turn and, in the season on a winning note, but that didn't happen. He had a baby. He had the knee injury. He had to take care of that towards the end of the season. So, it was disappointing. But on the other hand, I was really, really happy about the trade, or not the trade, but, the replacement with Desmond Ridder. I think he's going to do a good job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The reason I asked is because I really appreciated the addition. So one thing for sure, I don't have my background on my man cave, but one of the jerseys I have, in my man cave is number 18, Peyton Manning, who was the executive producer of the quarterback series. I respect, obviously, like any other football fan, everyone must love and respect Peyton Manning. He's revered. He's hilarious. The Manning cast is a hit. In terms on Saturday Night Live, it's phenomenal. I thought the production value of quarterback was off the charts.
Yeah.
I also think that kind of the introspective look of being able to get so close and personal to the quarterbacks behind the scenes, especially to Marcus, especially guys like Kirk, kind of those mid-tier guys, and obviously the elite level guys like Patrick Mahomes. It was really nice to see that contrast between journeyman with Marcus, elite mid-tier kind of, consistent starter with Kirk Cousins, and then obviously the cream of the crop, Patrick Mahomes. Getting that behind the scenes look as to kind of what it goes into their daily preparation, what goes into obviously, their decision making, both from a financial, a business aspect, and obviously, like I said, personal aspect. And kind of, what else that, the quarterbacks have to do to get into the games, how they rebound from losses, and kind of what they do. I mean, again, back to preparation. I mean, when Kirk Cousins went to Barnes & Noble and got that Dwayne Wade book, they basically kind of learned about how Dwayne Wade prepared and how he could use that to, help him, refine his technique. I thought that was really cool, because in the professional space and consulting and IT, there's different tools and tricks. I've been giving virtual summits. I haven't done it since in the past year. I think the economy is in a bad shape, right? A bad position right now for whatever reason. But I think hopefully it rebounds soon, and I'll be back to giving virtual summits. But I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other. And so with athletes, seeing how they use that and learn from others, I think that's something that we can all internalize because we can all learn from someone else and basically use their tools and techniques to refine our approach and make ourselves better, whatever our profession may be.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody that has that perception that football players are not necessarily educated and are smart and play that game at a level that they play at, not necessarily needing education. I mean, come on, that playbook and those plays that those guys need to memorize on a daily basis. I mean, if that's not a need for education, I mean, I don't know what is. I can't think of another sport that has so many plays.
I remember my last season playing 5 years ago with the Chicago Falcons. I remember our coach, Coach Larry Johnson, who played, obviously at D1 Tuskegee University, who played in the AFL. He put the Green Bay Blizzard and a few other teams, over in the Midwest, because arena football still has a presence in the Midwest. That's how I was able to extend my career by 5 years, as opposed to, just, kicking back. What he said to the guys, guys who wanted to use it as a vehicle, some guys, with us, who were basically trying to get eligibility, use it, to go to the next level. Guys who were, who had, siblings and they wanted to, instill those lessons to them, but they had not had the opportunity to play at D1 for whatever reasons. He basically said, for those of you guys sitting here slacking, think that you're going to have the shortcuts. He's like, just remember the D1 books, the playbooks are this thick, like a dictionary. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just like, how the hell? I mean, you've heard guys like Antonio Brown, who's the head case. I don't support any of his actions, since he left the Buccaneers, but kind of him talking about Central Michigan D1 books and, I mean, how insane it is, and for me too, having seen getting a taste of that from also a coaching perspective, when I coach at Whitney High School a few years ago, I mean, it's just, it's mind blowing, but just memorizing all the plays. And, it does take a sharp tool in the shed to really kind of, internalize that. It's just interesting to me how, they have to memorize playbooks, but for some reason there's that academic barrier between, players succeed. Not saying all players, right? But I want to say for the guys like for myself who played JUCO, my reasons were whatever, but everyone else, who I knew who played with me, I want to say the ones who did have the talent, for whatever reason, they couldn't put it together, 2+2 together in the classroom, right? But with that said, I mean, just when you ask them about playbooks and they can just tell you, ZX flat, R out. That was me. I was R, right? R out. From the slot. You basically go to the fly, or you go to if you go wide, flex out at Y. You have to kind of know what your assignment would be, and in the blocking scheme, right, you have to know kind of what your assignment will be. When the receivers line up, and basically where your running back's going to go. Which lane he's going to take, the A gap, the B gap. Especially it gets more difficult when you're becoming an offensive play caller. Whether it's even at the high school level, just knowing all those things. There's different types of schematics and different nuances with playbooks and everything that goes to plays. Like you said, I mean, football players, coaches, everyone alike, it's definitely a science to it. And it's, I mean, you see guys, nerds like Mike McDaniel, like just like, chopping it up in Miami. I mean, Randy Cross, I guess the show basically said that. He's like, this nerd is tearing it up. I mean, that's really what's trendy. Someone said, one of my boys, Anthony Jenkins, shout out Anthony, he basically said, oh yeah, you kind of look like Mike. I said, okay, cool, yeah, that's my doppelganger. So, I mean, because he also coached San Francisco before he got the head coaching position in Miami. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I think perceptions and stereotypes are what they are. I mean, all you can do is basically just do the best you can, and hopefully people see through it, and that you can help reverse it. So,
I mean, and another thing about that show, I have a whole new respect for Pat Mahomes.
Oh my God!
I mean, okay, from a conditioning standpoint, but then also with the high ankle sprain that he had, and he played through that. I mean, I've never had a high ankle sprain, but I've had a pretty bad ankle sprain.
Oh yeah,
and I couldn't imagine playing through something like that. I mean,
for me, just like the roll though. I mean, when you roll it, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, and you can imagine, you got low and you go high. Usually the lows are more serious, but obviously because when you have to pivot and plant, but obviously the high. I mean, that was just, especially for a quarterback who uses his legs as much to make plays as Pat does. I mean. And again, like you said, like being able to play, at in the AFC Championship and then in the Super Bowl and play through that pain, people were thinking, wow, the way he played in that second half, they thought maybe he was faking it, but he definitely was not faking it. It was just like, when you hear him mic'd up, you can hear why, that it's just the passion. When he played the 49ers, and bad memories to this day for that Super Bowl a few years ago, but 4 years ago now, it was, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is just a different breed, a different animal. I mean, when you talk about motivation, talk about that fifth gear, you talk about clutch gene, you talk about all those things, what you look for in a franchise quarterback, he checks all the boxes. And I mean, when you look at what he brings to the table, both like you said, from a leadership perspective, character, Andy Reid had found his perfect quarterback to basically, build a dynasty with. I mean, and I hate to say it, but like, I mean, who's really stopping me? Obviously, Travis Kelce's injured. They just announced the hyperextended knee. You got Chris Jones holding out for the contract extension. So those are two key starters, which I think opens up, the Chiefs a little bit. But I mean, we're going to see Thursday night, in 2 days. If Patrick Mahomes plays like Patrick Mahomes, I mean, there's nothing to worry about. I think, for Chiefs fans, one of my good friends, Nico Paris, on Twitter, we talk about, the Chiefs and we talk about football all the time. I mean, I'm an Irish fan, Chiefs fan. Now Chiefs fans, traditionally, we're not supposed to like each other because of the fact that the Chiefs beat us in the Super Bowl. But Joe Montana played for both teams. So, I mean, I still got love, and I still got love Patrick Mahomes just as a competitor for the reasons that you just listed. But it's just, I mean, it's crazy because, obviously be the athlete he is and then put extra work to become even better, because he's naturally gifted with his dad, as a pitcher. And then obviously, see, with the guys who are paid money to basically tackle him, to not be afraid to go basically stare those guys, just dead in the eye and basically said, I'm still going to go right at you. And you're going to have to knock me out of this game to make me stop.
Right.
And you basically challenge him to do that. I mean, I don't care whose weapons are, on the receiving core or tight end. I mean, that takes some serious moxie, some serious guts, and some serious words, which I can't use on the show, but it's incredible.
It sure is, man. And, they were saying that it usually takes 6 to 8 weeks to recover from something like that. I mean, it took him 8 days. He was back on the field.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy because it's like, I mean, I don't know if you remember one of the guests on my show, Ryan Harris, who won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning back in 2016. He was on my show last year, and we talked about kind of, Peyton, kind of the Super Bowl preparation. One play which really stuck out to me was when Von Miller went, or was it Von? No, it was TJ Ward. He went for Cam Newton. Cam Newton basically got hit, and then the ball came out, and you just saw Cam was getting harassed by defense all day. He basically he wanted to die for it, but then he saw TJ and Von basically go at it, and he was getting knocked and harassed and just beaten up and just battered. And those hits hurt. You know what I mean? Especially at the biggest stage. And so he basically, people said, oh, he made a coward move to not go and dive on that fumble. I mean, you just like, I mean, I can sympathize with a player like that getting battered and brute and just tossed around like a rag doll by a historic all-time defense. The Philadelphia Eagles had 70 sacks last year. That was the third most in NFL history. And Patrick Mahomes, obviously, how do they get sacks? They go after the what? The QB, right?
Exactly.
And the QB right now is playing a hobble on one leg, and he was able to come back down 24-14 in the second half and put the team on his back and win the game. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, I don't care what you want to say about the penalty on James Bradbury or what have you. Like, it's incredible just to see, like you said, the 6 to 8 week recovery time, your background, personal training. You definitely can speak to that, working with many clients. My background, hadn't been injured. I've had so many MRIs and so many CTs, for God knows what. I'm not going to get into all that, but I mean, it really is incredible, to see, and we are in the age of Mahomes, and, the part of my hesitancy to even put the Niners in a Super Bowl mix this year with the Chiefs, being hobble is because of number 15. You can never count them out.
Exactly. So what do you think about this Thursday's matchup?
I mean, I really am looking forward to it. I really am looking forward to seeing how Jared Goff and Lions take that next step, especially Emmanuel Mosley, who came from Niners to go over there. So I'm going to be rooting for the Chiefs. I'm kidding. It would be great if we retained him, but it is what it is. I mean, NFL's a business like anything else. Like when my current line of work, contracts come, they end, work comes, work ends, for whatever reason, you have to make decisions, and, NFL is nothing more than a business. And I was watching the HBO show Ballers. We'll talk about that another time, because I mean,
that's another show, man. Oh, my God.
We'll talk about that another time, because I really want to dissect that show, because it's so real to life. And The Rock, I mean, tremendous respect for him both as a wrestler and as a football player, now as an actor. But anyways, okay, back to Thursday night. So the Detroit Lions under Dan Campbell, I mean, last year they were able to basically keep Green Bay out of the postseason. They basically let Aaron Rodgers ride off into the proverbial sunset to New York without a playoff appearance. And their defense last year was horrible. I believe they allowed, I want to say 444 yards per game at one point. And I mean, but their offense with Jared Goff, he was just slicing and dicing, defenses left and right. I mean, I think I want to say what he's at almost 5,000 yards passing or something ridiculous, and over 35, whatever, how many touchdowns. I mean, I have the exact figures, right? But with that said, you look at the Detroit Lions. Now they've made some key. I want to say some key. I really like Emmanuel Mosley in the secondary. I really think that that they've made some key they have a year under the belt. They made some key kind of additions. They have Dan Campbell as their head coach, who I think is a great players coach. We'll see. The only issue is obviously it's Kansas City. You still got, like I said, number 15 at home, right? You can never bet against them. They're going to raise a banner, but I think there is an opportunity there if Detroit, again, any given Sunday, any given day, every dog has his day, right? And if the Detroit Lions come in, focus, Jared Goff plays his best game, the defense goes out and shows that they've improved from last year significantly, which is going to be a tall task against Kansas City, they have a chance. Now, I said they have a chance. That doesn't mean, what is the probability of that, right? The probability is probably slim to none that they're going to come out there with a win, right? Arrowhead is one of the most difficult places to play. Patrick Mahomes, I believe, has lost 3 games. And I want to say in the opening week, in the last in his entire career, his last 5 or 6 seasons in the NFL as starter, which is insane. Patrick Mahomes has even better numbers. I want to say, in the season opener, and then the first 4 games of the year. I mean, September is a phenomenal month for Patrick. He hits his magic. I think he has something crazy, like 60 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, or something like that all the time. So, again, it just depends on how well they can bottle up Mahomes, how uncomfortable they can make him. We saw Buffalo go there last year and beat them. But again, it's the season opener, and I'm counting on the Chiefs to come out there with a win. I mean, I'm not saying they're going to hang 30 or 40. I'm expecting a highly contested game. I want to say somewhere around the 24 to 28 range. I'm going to go probably 28-21 Chiefs.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going with the Chiefs as well. I think they're going to pull it out. Yeah.
But do you think it's going to be do you think it's going to be a shootout? Do you think it's going to be a defensive struggle? Do you think they're going to just hang 30 or 40 on them, like some of the media talking heads are saying, or what are you expecting?
I'm expecting a shootout, like probably 35-30, something like that.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even without Kelsey, I mean, he has Tony, he has, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who was on my fantasy team last year. He has a bunch of great pieces, in that receiving core. Juju, obviously. Well, Juju's not there anymore. I apologize. Juju's on the Patriots. But, I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he's like Tom Brady in kind of how he makes the receivers great. Like Peyton Manning did the same thing when he was playing. I mean, the best testament of a quarterback is how great the receivers can look with him, without having a prior resume, if that makes sense. So.
All right, so let's talk about Sunday, man. What do you think about the 49ers this Sunday?
Going to Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett looking like he's going to take the next step from last year. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in his entire tenure as head coach in Pittsburgh. I've had a guest of the show, Chukia Kobe, who played under Mike Tomlin last year. Who was on the show last year. He played with Mike, and he won a Super Bowl with Mike back in 2006. So. I mean, I want to say what I'm looking forward to is I want to see how well the new pieces play. I'm not going to say it's a tune-up game because I'm not looking past Pittsburgh. They do have TJ Watt. They do have, great pieces. They do have Kenny Pickett. They do have George Pickens. They do have, a lot of great. They have Cam Hayward. Some great veterans, defensive talent. And if the Niners don't come focused, then they can definitely, it can definitely be a track game. But that said, I think the Niners are a superior team. And I think if they do play, with the focus, and if Brock can show that, again, can Brock take that next step, leadership-wise, again, the talent, doesn't really matter how well or how great your QB is if you have a talented all-around team. But I do think I am expecting Brock to prove, there's that chip on his shoulder just because he was Mr. Relevant. And, for them to trade Trey Lance, I'm sure that he's hearing all the rumblings, about kind of, the noodle arm and all that stuff. I'm expecting the Niners to go in there. I'm expecting a defensive struggle again because it is against a great Pittsburgh team in terms of defense. And I'm going to probably go 24-17 Niners.
Okay, I'm going for the 49ers as well on that one. Now, the Panthers-Falcons.
Ooh, golly. We took Sam out of your division, so you can thank us for that.
I appreciate it.
And we took C-Mac from your division, so you can thank us for that as well. That's probably like a next level, like a God level thank you.
Yeah, it is.
It is. With that said, it is at home. I think Desmond Ridder is a great young quarterback. It's going to be a true test for him to see how he plays against an elite pass rush. And I think Bryce Young will probably. I think the X factor won't necessarily be that. I think the X factor will be Bryce Young, his first career start. Can he go out there and show that? And he's very undersized. He's my height. He's 5'10" on a good day, and it's. I mean, historically speaking, unless a quarterback is pretty well built, like a Russell Wilson or Kyler Murray, you pretty much don't want your quarterback to be, disadvantaged at that. So I want to say I'm going to go with the Falcons at home. But it'll be a close game. I want to go Falcons 28-24.
All right. I'm going to say the same. The Falcons should pull that one out. I mean, that was a fluke in last season with Mariota. And
Yeah.
And that penalty that they had at the end of regulation, that was ridiculous.
That was absolutely ridiculous. I want to run through the full week 1 matchups if you're cool, because I want to just kind of get your takes. Yeah, so let's go kind of down the list.
Okay.
Job on Lions Chiefs. The next game that's listed on Google is Bengals and Browns. Or sorry, NFL.com, not Google. Bengals and Browns. Bengals at Browns. Joe Burrow coming back, from that devastating, and the Bengals coming back from that devastating AFC Championship loss. Who you got win that game in the battle for Ohio?
Oh, definitely the Bengals, man.
I'm going to go Bengals too. Texans, Ravens at Baltimore. CJ, right? CJ Stroud. Yep. CJ Stroud is also going to be making his rookie debut as a quarterback. I am looking forward to seeing how well they do. But who you got winning that game?
I'm going with the Ravens.
I'm going with the Ravens too. But you know what? D'Amico Ryans from San Francisco, I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to pull it out. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Let's go next up. We got the Buccaneers and the Vikings.
Oh, definitely the Vikings.
Definitely the Vikings. They have lost some key players like Dalvin Cook and many others. However, I do think, like I said, Baker Mayfield being Baker Mayfield, that should be a pretty easy win for Minnesota.
I think so.
we already went to Panthers, Falcons. Okay, Cardinals, Commanders at Washington.
I like the Commanders. I like what I saw in the preseason.
Oh, yeah, I like them too. No, I like that defense. There's lots to like about them. So, we'll see how well they do. I don't know if Heineke's still there or if he is, and who else is the quarterback. But, there's definitely a young promise team. Chase Young can come out and be healthy. We'll see. All right, AFC South matchup, Jaguars at Colts.
I'm going with the Jaguars on this one.
I'm going with the Jaguars too. Trevor Lawrence, the Colts without Jonathan Taylor. I don't know who or what made them think that they can handle that any worse than they have. Jonathan Taylor wanting to get paid, and Jim Irsay not willing to pay him money, and then obviously the GM basically being a middleman, and it's a horrible situation with a player with the production of Jonathan Taylor. So that is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, Titans at Saints.
Even though I can't stand the Saints, I'm going to go with the Saints.
I'm going with the Saints for the reason that I cited. I believe they're the best team in the NFC South, and but I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans pull it out. The Titans have lost a lot of pieces, but Derrick Henry was on my fantasy team last year. He definitely paid dividends. But we'll see if Cam Jordan and that defensive front can do something about that. Raiders at Broncos AFC West matchup. Jimmy Garoppolo in his debut.
Oh, the Raiders, man. Raiders look good too.
Oh, Raiders at Denver. You got okay. You know what? That's a bull pick. I might. God, it's tough because I don't know who I trust less. Do I trust Jimmy Garoppolo with Devontae? But you have Josh McDaniels there, and he has familiarity with that offense from New England, right? Before he came to San Francisco. Or do you trust Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, who have a proven history? Sean Payton has a proven history of making those quarterbacks. That Super Bowl that I mentioned, Dennis Allen was. Sean Payton was the head coach driving that bus, right? So, and you prove it time and time again, So, it's definitely a make or break game for Sean Payton. So, you know what? I'm going to go with Denver, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders win. I'm going to go 17-13 Broncos.
All right.
Eagles at Patriots.
I'm going with the Patriots.
I'm going with the Eagles, and that's not even going to be close. I'm going to go 45-10 Eagles.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. I do not trust the Patriots. They have not made enough moves. I don't know what Belichick is thinking. I believe they signed something Taylor or Matt Corral as their third quarterback. And Bailey Zappi, for some reason, is getting the short end stick, even though he proved that he was definitely competent enough to be a starter when Mac McCorkle-Jones went out. So I don't know what Belichick's trying to prove. I think it's ego more than anything else. So until he's out of there, I think they're going to continually be hamstrung. Okay, Rams at Seahawks, NFC West matchup.
Going with the Seahawks. I'm
going with the Seahawks too, only for the reason that the Rams are still kind of finding their identity. They had the worst bounce, I guess, follow-up season for any Super Bowl champion last year, going 5-12.
Right.
And I mean, the Seahawks are a playoff team with Geno and all those pieces. So, and Bobby Wagner's back from LA back to Seattle. So, you got the best middle linebacker in the league. So, what's not to like? And as an Irish fan, I'm scared, but it is what it is. Okay, next up, Dolphins, Miami. Who is going? Miami at LA Chargers.
Man, that's a tough one. But I'm gonna go with the Dolphins.
I will go with the God. I don't know. I love Mike. Mike was my coach.
Yeah.
Not my coach. He's not my coach individually, but the 49ers, when he was assistant coach before he took the Dolphins gig last year. Yeah, See, but that's the problem. See, my problem is I'm struggling. So with Tua and his new kind of fallback scheme to prevent injuries and all the injuries he suffered last year, and how much of a talking point that was for the game, the safety of the game.
Yeah.
Like how well is Tua? How well is he equipped to go up against Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa? That's what. And the Chargers are at home. So, but they do have Tyreek Hill, right? They do. Miami has a lot of offensive weapons.
Yes, they do.
Receiving core, and they're phenomenal. Obviously, Mike McDaniel's a phenomenal offensive mind. So, I am gonna go 24-20 Chargers.
Okay, you picking the Chargers.
I'm picking the Chargers. I could definitely be wrong. I mean, Brandon Staley has not proven anything, and obviously a lot of people are saying he's on the hot seat. But I love Justin Herbert. I trust Justin Herbert that much. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's blind trust. So, all right, moving right along. We got Packers at Bears.
I'm going with the Bears on this one.
I'm going with the Bears too. We got Jordan Love, but I think so. Jordan Love looked solid in the preseason, but I think the Bears, I think just they Justin Fields took some leaps and bounds. I think Jordan Love will have those jitters in his first kind of start, as the man. And the Bears are a great team, all things considered, offense and defense. Roquan Smith, best middle linebacker in the league, arguably. So, there's a lot of good things to like about them. So I'm gonna go with the Bears too. I'm gonna go 16-13 Chicago. And I live in Chicago, so yeah, gotta fuck with them. Sorry, oops, I apologize. Cowboys at Giants.
Again, man, I hate the Cowboys. I'm gonna pull for whatever team opposes them, so I'm going with the Giants.
Hey man, my whole life I've just never been with the star. You know what I mean? Every time we play the last 2 years, who's ended the Cowboy season in the postseason?
Absolutely, right? Yeah.
So, but with that said, I don't know enough about this Giants team to say that they are definitely better on both sides of the ball. I really and this is an unbiased take because just the Cowboys offensively and defensively have a lot of talent. I want to say the Cowboys defense is somewhere top 10. I don't know if it's 6 or 2, but they're up there. I know or maybe the Bills are number 6 and someone else number 2. I forgot who it is, but there's a lot to like about this defensive front last year, and they took leaps and bounds to basically show that, to the point where Stephen A. Smith, the OG Cowboy haters on First Take, picking Dallas.
Is he?
As his number 3 favorite in the NFC. So
wow.
Behind San Francisco and Phil, yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go. I hate to say it, I'm gonna go Cowboys. I'm gonna go Cowboys 24-20.
Okay.
At Big Blue. But yeah, I hope the Giants prove me wrong. I hope, because I
Me
really
too.
like Daniel Jones. Last but not least, staying in the state of New York, we got the Bills and the debut of that bad man, Aaron Rodgers, at the New York Jets on September 11th.
Well, I think that the Bills were strong all last season until the playoffs. I mean, that was highly disappointing. But I think they're still going to be strong this season as well. So I'm going with the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the defense and obviously the whole DeMar Hamlin situation, which was, oh my God, that was probably one of the most scariest moments for anyone who ever played or just as a fan, just watching that unfold, right? I mean, that was
Right.
terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Um, I want to say I don't think the Jets have done enough for me to be all in on them as everyone else is as a playoff team yet. I do hope they are because I love Robert Saleh when he was a coach for the 49ers. He was one of the best. He was the energy, the life, and the heart and soul of our defense. Um, but with that said, like you said, the talent, right? Talent speaks for itself. That's why I got the Niners or the Steelers. That's why I got the Cowboys or the Giants. I'm gonna go with Bills. I'm gonna go with Bills over Jets, but I think it's gonna be a shootout because of Aaron Rodgers. I think it's gonna go 34-31 Buffalo. That's
Okay.
gonna round out my picks. So
Sounds good. So we will see what happens this coming Thursday night. We will be back next week, ladies and gentlemen, for our second episode.
yes,
Take care.
sir. Take care, everyone.